the banks and the corporates, and it now has 4 balance sheet: bank, corporate, the third one is the balance sheet of the NBFC, and fourth one is the balance sheet of the real estate sector. So now these 4 sectors are in crisis. The problem is big. That is why we are saying that we are in a big slowdown, right? So why NBFC falter? Because there was a trigger in September 2018 after the collapse of the IL&FS, and it was having a huge amount, 90,000 crore stake involved, and it was completely unexpected. And most of this money was channeled to the real estate sector, which in itself was in a difficult situation. What was the problem with the real estate sector? The problem with the real estate sector is that they have been launching huge numerous projects since mid 2000s, and the demand is actually falling down. And in the absence of banks lending to them, NBFCs actually gave the loan to them. But in 2019 June, the 10 lakh units are unsold in just top 8 cities, and the real estate sector is then unable to pay back to the NBFC, which in turn is starting the default, and it resulted into the problem of the NBFC. So now what is the problem? Now the problem is that every like there is a problem all around. Now there is a problem all around. So if we see the national income, the C is already down. This is the major problem right now. The consumption is a major problem. We don't have this consumption going up. The consumption is going down. There are various surveys which clearly indicate that consumption is coming down. Then the government expenditure cannot be increased much because the fiscal deficit is already high, and because of the fiscal deficit high, the government expenditure can actually not be increased. So the C is down, G is down, I is also down. So there has been a lot of repo rate cuts, but still the investment is not increasing. The investment situation is really bad, as well as because of the poor global demand, the NX is also down. So we can see all the 4 drivers: the consumption, the government expenditure, the investment, and the net exports, all of them are down. Therefore, it is very, very difficult to revive from this situation. And at present we face both the structural and the cyclical problems. Structural and the cyclical problems. What is the meaning of structural problem? The structural problem is the problems which are having the long-term issues, right? For example, the inflexible labor laws, right? And we also have the cyclical problem, that is the bad monsoon, which actually destroys the crop. So because of this bad monsoon, there is inflation, there is hike in the prices of very essential commodities like onion. So these structural and cyclical issues, the cyclical means the short-term issues. Because of these 2 issues, we cannot take any step which can result in revival of the issue immediately. So both the long-term and the short-term steps have to be taken to get out of this crisis. Now, so we have discussed all this. Government can't do much. Why government can't do much? Because first, the fiscal deficit is already high, so we cannot give much of the government benefits to the citizens. Secondly, even the monetary policy, cheap monetary policy, giving the loan at a very low rate, reducing the repo rate, that is not going to impact much because the transmission of the monetary policy is weak. This transmission is weak. So even though the RBI has been decreasing the repo rate, but still this is not resulting into the low interest rate on the loan given by the banks to the customers, because there are a lot of other factors involved, right? So now what needs to be done? So what can be done? First of all, we need to create 2 bad banks. One for the real estate sector, another for the power sector. So these 2 banks actually should take over the bad loans of the power sector and real estate sector, so that the banks as well as the NBFCs, they can be free from this and they can start fresh lending, and because of the fresh lending, the investment and the consumption will start. Secondly, even the NBFCs, the regulation should be strong so that the problem do not repeat in the future. And third, recapitalization of the banks and the asset quality review, this should be linked to the resolution and the reforms which are undertaken by the public sector bank. So the recapitalization should not be done blindly. The more capital should be given to a particular bank only when the bank is actually doing some resolution and the reforms, right? So this is what needs to be done in the short term. In the long term, we need to really focus upon the structural issues, for example, the labor reforms, ease of doing business, land acquisition reforms, and tax reforms, etc. Right? So this is how we can go out of this slowdown. But as of now, we are having this slowdown. So can I give you a quick snapshot of what we have discussed till now? Right? So we started with the growth rate going slow. The growth rate going slow means there is a slowdown. Right? The growth rate is calculated based upon the national income. And then the national income is calculated with the help of expenditure method. That is, NI is equal to C plus G plus I plus NX. Right? This interplay of these four factors actually decide the GDP amount or GDP growth rate. So if we see in 2005 the growth rate was good, therefore the banks were lending huge amount to the corporates. But in 2008, because of the global financial crisis, the Indian companies also getting into trouble. The banks started lending less amount, so investment came down. Because of the global crisis, the NX also came down. So I is down, NX is down. But the C and G are high, because on the one hand the government is giving the fiscal stimulus, and on the other hand the banks are survived, therefore they are also giving some loan to the companies, which is resulting into the consumption expenditure. So C and G are good, but N and NX and the I are down. So this is the situation till 2013. From 2013 onwards, the crude oil prices start fall down. The crude oil prices are getting down, and because of that, the people have more money to spend, and the C is increasing. Then, secondly, even I is increasing because NBFC sector is giving the loan. There is rupee depreciation, and because of that, the global demand is increasing. Therefore, the NX is also increasing. The government is also expanding the amount through the NHAI, FCI, etc. And because of them, the G is also increasing. So all the factors are increasing. And because of that, till 2018, there is good GDP growth rate. In September 2018, the U-turn comes, and the NBFC, IL&FS, which is having a 90,000 crore amount, fell down. And after that, the NBFC sector keeps under the monitoring by the authorities, and there are further issues which happen. For example, DHFL crisis, right? These NBFCs have been giving primarily loan to the real estate sector, and the real estate sector is in trouble because of the poor demand. The 10 lakh units are unsold, and the annual demand is only 2 lakh units. So real estate sector, which has been getting the loan from the NBFC sector, is in trouble, and because of that, they start defaulting in the repayment to the NBFC sector, and this NBFC sector also start getting problem. So earlier we had the public sector banks and the corporates in trouble. Now we have two additional sectors, the real estate sector and the NBFC sector, in trouble. So now, from the twin balance sheet crisis, we are into four balance sheet crisis. Now we are into four balance sheet crisis, right? At present, if we see, the consumption is already weak. The government can't expand much because the fiscal deficit is already high. The investment can't be increased because the NBFC as well as the banking sector both are down. Even the government has the RBI has actually decreased the repo rate. The government has given the tax cuts, but still the investment is not increasing. The global slowdown is there, because of that the annex part is also not increasing. So all the four drivers are down. That is why we say this is a very big issue, and this is called great economic slowdown of India. What can be done? We have seen two bad banks we can have, one for the real estate sector, another for the power sector. We can strengthen the NBFC sector, and we can link the recapitalization to the reforms and the resolution by the public sector banks. With this, I complete the discussion. Thank you very much. If you really like our lecture, please subscribe to and share so that I can make more and more lectures. Thank you very much.